Wow, this is my first time through this door in so many years. Yeah. Since it's inside the campus, it gives you a sense of security. I could still hear my daughter running around here, yeah, her voice echoing, bouncing through the walls. You know, one of the things that I think was the effect of martial law on her was she's never sure about what's going to happen next. Up to this day, she still carries, the trauma in the sense that when you ask her about, the future, of course she has plans in the future for her daughter, but she always thinks about, what can happen, especially now that Marcos is back.
So hello po, sir. My name is Ryan Magno. I am from 3AB Political Science, and I'm currently a core member of the Ateneo Martial Law Museum student arm. So with us today, we have si Sir Butch Abad. So hello po, sir. Welcome back to Ateneo. Kamusta?
It's been a while.
So
Happy
sir,
to be here.
now that you're back here at Ateneo po, I was wanted to ask, what's changed po? I'm sure, like since your time here, it's changed so much. So do you still recognize campus po?
No, no, I'm surprised. In fact, this is the first time I see this new environment of Eliaso Hall. It's become prettier and it looks like it's student friendly this time.
So of course you took your undergrad here. What was it like po as an undergrad in Ateneo at the time?
Well, this was 1972 because I was at the high school from 68 to 72. And this was the beginning of the regime where women were allowed into the Ateneo. But the school was, and the environment was also in ferment because of martial law. Martial law was just declared.
So, sir, could you describe like what was the atmosphere like when martial law was initially declared here on campus? Like, how were people reacting?
You won't believe it, but my hair was this long. And one of the first things that I had to confront was, you cannot go to school in a long hair. They will stop you, even if you're in a public transport, and cut your hair. I was afraid to go out of our house for a while. I didn't go to school. They said there was nothing to be scared about, but you hear people being arrested. You hear politicians being detained, and so it was tense for a while. There was a general feeling of fear and uncertainty, although the propaganda of martial law was telling people na there's nothing to be afraid about. This is a smiling martial law. You just follow the law. Nothing's going to happen to you. But there were student demonstrations practically every day. The martial law repression did not immediately happen as it initially first attacked the opposition, the media, and some of the leading activists. And I think they were careful not to create an international issue about it. At the time, they were trying to say, we have to do this to protect the security of the state. So the ideology was national security state because of in Asia then, there was this what is called the Asian domino, and many of the countries in Asia were becoming authoritarian regimes. So there was that trend, and the Philippines was certainly following that trend.
Ikaw po, sir, do you have like any specific like memorable moments, I guess, from that activist period as a student po? Like, what was it like for you?
Uh, I did not get into it right away. I was spending more time. I was a member of the NCAA volleyball team, and only because by joining the volleyball team, I didn't have to go to ROTC because so I could keep my long hair. But then you cannot avoid that hearing, the debates in school, and if you go out, the rallies at Katipunan. It was inevitable that many of us would eventually be drawn into the student activism, and it wasn't until after the great floods of '73 in Central Luzon, where we participated in a massive relief campaign here at the Ateneo. We came back to the villages that we held in San Simon, Pampanga, and we saw that their lives were even worse than before. Our Office of the Sarilikha, which is the student volunteer organization, was here. So I'd spend a lot of time with them here for, when we are not in the field, we would come here and study what is communism, what is capitalism, why are ideologies important, how do you relate that to what is happening to the Philippine situation now. We would do field work and we would attend rallies because it gave me very strongly a sense of, mission. There is something that we need to do for our country. But if you don't understand what's happening, if you don't arm yourself with values and ideas, so that you can engage, the government and your fellow activists well, then you will not be able to help as much. So we saw studying, but not so much in classroom, but the studies we had here. We were both studying formally in class, and of course we enjoyed our theology of liberation class. I had the great fortune of having been able to attend a course by Father Horacio de la Costa. He was my history teacher, so we had very good discussions in class about the courses as they relate to the objective reality outside the classroom.
So then, what did student activism look like at the time, especially when it just started, like the martial law?
Part of the reason Marcos declared martial law was the militancy of the students was really getting the Marcos regime nervous, because every day in Mendiola, the students were clashing with the police and the military, and they were trying to break through the barriers to rally in front of the palace. And you go anywhere, and the students were either camping out or staging rallies or teach-ins. At one point, Diliman was closed down in what was called the Diliman Commune. And I was still in high school there, and we would all go to Diliman and help make Molotov bombs using bottles and rugs. The student activist movement was very strong. And I think at the same time the insurgency campaign was also intensifying, and the Muslim secessionist movement at the same time was also creating a lot of complications for Marcos down south.
So, sir, you mentioned po being jailed. What was it like the first time? Like, what was running through your head?
The first time I was jailed was in 1978. We campaigned for Ninoy Aquino. Of course, we had that April 6 noise barrage that scared Marcos, and because it was all over the country, and it was the interim Bataso elections, and Ninoy Aquino was a candidate, but he wasn't allowed to leave the prison, and the number one candidate of KBL was Imelda. So we took the cudgels for Ninoy and campaigned for him. But when the results came out, of course, they cheated in the elections. Imelda was number one, Ninoy was number 25, and there were only 24 slots. So clearly there was cheating. To condemn the death of democracy, we organized a march from some from here, the Student Council of the Ateneo. Pero nung nandun pa lang kami sa Washington, may release ng tren, General Olivas came and stopped us. And we all said, we're not going home, we're going to sit down. And if they bring us to jail, so be it. Akala namin di nila gagawin. They all brought us to Bikutan.
So other than that po, like, what changed po in your activism during college and then when you were doing it professionally, like after graduation? What were the big differences?
Well, during college, it was still largely extracurricular. In 76, after college, it became a full-time preoccupation. It was our life's work. And it became even more complicated when I got married. And then we had our first child. When our eldest child, Julia, was a year old, we were both in jail. How can you imagine leaving behind a 1-year-old girl and you're both in jail? With the support of the Jesuits, we had a community of development workers and activists. It was scary. We would get scared, but our commitment to do what we were doing was stronger than, the fear of Marcos. I mean, we lived day by day. We didn't know what was going to happen tomorrow because sometimes they'd wake us up at 3 o'clock in the morning and then question us, psychologically threaten us.
So then, sir, how did you eventually get out of Camp Cram?
I remember that day we were asked to room of General Olivas, who was the head of the Crame, I think Metrocom. It was 3 o'clock in the morning, so I told Dina, I don't know what's going to happen here, but normally it's around this time where they call you and do what they want to do with you. Then when I entered the room, I saw Father Cruz. He's spoken to the people up and to General Olivas. You're going to be freed, but on certain conditions. We couldn't go home. We have to report and stay here at Eliaso Hall. And then we would stop doing trade union work. So Father Cruz gave me a scholarship to go to the Ateneo Law School. When we left Crame, I asked Father Cruz, how did you manage to do that? He said he met Imelda or somebody. He threatened to close the university. He will force the university to take a more, activist position. And we were asked to live here. So we were here for, I think, more than a year. Wow, this is my first time through this door in so many years. Yeah. And then towards the end, that's where our rooms were. Our home for more than a year. Yeah, I think this was one of the rooms where we stayed, and that one.
Wasn't too bad naman po, sir, at the time.
No, well, since it's inside the campus, it gives you a sense of security.
What was it like po being followed? What did it feel like?
Bawat nakikita mo na naka-dark glasses na malaking tao, parang sundalo na. Sometimes the paranoia was, hard to deal with. Not because it's the fear of being taken and disappearing. Yun talaga nakakatakot eh. Because so many Ateneans have disappeared that way. We didn't know what was going to happen. So we were scared, really scared. In fact, one time, we were put in a safe house. And now and then, our friends here in the Jesuit community would send seminarians to make sure that we were okay. And if something happens, at least what was important there is you are seen being arrested. So they cannot deny that you were taken. But there was one time that we knew they were going to arrest us. So uh, we left before the military came. But there was one seminarian who was there waiting for us, who was arrested himself. And the following day, he was found dead in a morgue in Quezon City. And, I knew the guy and, 19 years old. I was shaking, learning what happened to him. And they did not see him with any wounds or anything. I think the torture was so well done. He had a cardiac arrest for 19-year-old. It was really scary because, of course, our conclusion is, he's just a seminarian. He's just watching over us. How about us who are very much active in the trade union movement? We are sure to suffer the same fate, but maybe they'll try to get as much information from us.
It's only now that I'm discovering just how Ateneo has been involved with martial law. Even as a kid, I never really knew about it, and I guess it's just telling about the spirit of Ateneans, no? How we really take to heart our values that the school wants to teach us, and we're willing to fight talaga. And we've seen that now with the recent elections and everything. A lot of young people, a lot of my friends, they are very active, and even up to now, even after the elections, they're very active. They they really go beyond. They strive for the matches, as they would say, and it's very inspiring. That it's the young people talaga. Surprisingly, our country is built on the young people, and it's it's our vocation, kumbaga. Yeah.
Well, we thought we gave everything already, to end martial law and enable the country to begin progressing. But it seems all that effort after saying never again in 86. And then on this 50th year of that infamous day when martial law was declared, another Marcos takes over power. I've been really thinking about that, but I've not been able really to reconcile with myself. How could that have happened? Maybe we celebrated too early and we became complacent and failed to really demand accountability from them. And that's why they managed to find their way back to power. And I feel a sense of guilt having been part of that campaign to dismantle martial rule and restore Philippine democracy and give it more substance so that it becomes meaningful, especially to the poor. I think a lot of work still needs to be done along that line. But I guess thinking about young people today, the more we are unable to address this problem of inequity, exclusion, poverty, and the dominance by a few families over political power and wealth, I think every year that we are unable to address that, it will get worse. And I think the remedies to deal with that will need to become more radical. Things have become more difficult and complicated. Uh, I can't believe that 360 we're back to another Marcos.
If it's any consolation, sir, I think So I remember very vividly when the elections results came out, yung unofficial pa lang. I was with my friends, like we were on a call, and what struck me was that it was just that shock. People were crying, my friends were crying, including myself. I cried for a bit, and I guess it just shows that we're not we're not ready to give up. Kumbaga, like we have passion talaga, and I feel like, sir, we're seeing a resurgence of what you experienced, sir, when you in your youth, when you were in college. So I think it can only get better from here. There's still hope.
Well, this spirit of voluntarism and activism that many young people showed in the last election should give us hope if that energy can in fact be uh, consolidated and be expressed in institutions and organizations so that the fight to end the very roots why martial law came to being and why another Marcos came into being, you know, the struggle to find solutions for that must continue. And I think, as you correctly pointed out, that is a positive sign amidst that gloom that we faced with the results of the election.